Hey guys, thought I'd give you a quick update as to what's going on with oil. I know everyone's just loving the prices at the pumps, and I have a knowledge of how the markets work in regard to these things, so what you can expect. So this is not doom and gloom. This is just what's on the table, and so you can prepare accordingly. So let's do that. So this is the chart of the WTI crude oil futures, which largely mirror the prices of all the different grades of crude across the board. This chart also mirrors fluctuations you see in the gasoline futures and heating oil. So it's a good place for us to look at what's going on. This chart is going back to, you see this cursor I'm having here. This chart goes all the way back in time, back into the 80s, but for the intensive purposes of this chart, we're going to go back to the 90s. So all of these features you're seeing in the chart here, I'm going to explain to you what they are so you can understand where we're going. And this is not investment advice. It's simply, hey, you may want to prepare in a number of ways I'll suggest shortly. So the way charts work, just to let you know, we'll hop in our time machine for a moment. And we'll go back to when oil had a low in 1998 and then ultimately had the high in 2008, which is a 20-year period. You can basically take a measured move. So what you essentially do is that you take the low. This is the low in 1998 and the high in 2006. Take the low, and anytime you then make a lower low, so you see high, low, high, low, high, then a lower low here. That's where you take the measured point from. And so you can see naturally we had a high here of $71 in 2006 and a low at $51. Measure that through, and you can see that this is how the you're at least guaranteed this much of a rise. And we see overshot there. A smaller measure of that would be to take, for example, you see this run here, and you see a minor break right there. Take that measurement there, and then extend it through, and once again, you always get in there. And you see that especially what happened with so it works in upward markets and downward markets. So for example, we had the high in 2008 at $150 a barrel, down to the low, almost collapsed overnight. And then you look for the other end of that equation, and you can see it actually matched up perfectly here. Now, of course, this took a long time to unwind, but it did unwind. Everyone remembers when gas was 60 cents at the pumps. And as I've told you, the other side of the equation always happens. And this is the breaking of this particular trend. And this is the trend that perfectly formed here. And now we're going to have a new trend going up to some very stratospheric levels. So judge yourself accordingly. So what do we got here? The previous high was $149.19 back in 2008. And using the same premise I've just showed you as far as measuring markets, you can see we can take the low that happened here in the COVID crisis up to this point here, and simply we can just extend that move, and you see we're going to be going up to roughly about $197 a barrel. When is that going to happen? Well, here's how it goes. You see the previous high at $146. Markets usually will test a top. So for example, you look at this minor top here, had a minor top here, kind of tested, then fell apart. In this particular case, because of the huge amount of currency creation and just generally the inflation that's in the system, I am expecting the top to be tested here very shortly. The latest it's going to be tested will be early 2023. But I do feel it's probably, once we get over this, this is a Fibonacci circle. Once we get over this, it's probably going to jerk around here a bit, pop down. And I'm expecting it to test that very, very quickly. And then it's going to exceed it probably by $10 because there's a lot of guys who are going to try and short the market, and that's how they clear them out. So down to like $156. And then you're going to see some oscillation inside this chamber. As we proceed then to head to the, as I was saying earlier, we're going to be proceeding to head to the $185 to $190 level by November 2023. So this is important to recognize these things. Markets don't go up overnight, but they don't. They go up. They go up shorter, or in a longer time frame. They go down. But they always say that markets take the elevator or the stairs up, and the elevator down. And you can see that expressed here in the previous rises, where it's just like very much so climbing the stairs because it's a wall of worry, and ultimately gets to the point where things just fall apart. So as I said, I'm expecting it to rise up to this level, and achieve that $190 level no later than 2023. However, it's important to know that what is likely to happen is we're going to get what's a macro rise. So after we rise up to this level here, it's probably going to jerk around for a while and actually create a circumstance where we have a much bigger running line that's then likely going to extend to here, and roughly by 2030, because we're looking at 2030 as being a very strategic point as far as the climax of markets. And so I'm expecting that by 2030, these are just some of the charts that I formulated, I'm expecting that by 2030, we'll be rising up to a global price point somewhere roughly around $330 a barrel. That's at this point here. The rise in markets, so if we look here, this is 2020, that's 10 years. The previous rise happened in a 20-year period. I'm expecting this to be a little more aggressive. And this will go in line with the 10-year Treasury. If you look at my previous videos on interest rates, there was quite a large rise in interest rates over a 10-year period from 1971 to 81 when America went off the gold standard. So what does that mean? Well, I mean, you're basically going to see the price of everything rise. And, if you're in a business, for sure, you want to begin to control how you increase your prices associated with your customers. A little painful, try and be strategic in that regard. Of course, just like in the 70s, the oil crisis that happened then, all the big cars, it's funny how the world was full of land yachts and hot rods in the 60s and early 70s and through the 70s, but then it became very much in vogue to have a fuel-efficient car, so that's going to happen again. So fuel-efficient cars will actually be far more valuable than you'll be able to get a great deal on your hot rod. Won't be able to drive it much, but you'll be able to get a great deal on it. But as I said, in the short term, we're looking for a rise. Probably, we're going to match the old high very, very shortly here. That's going to be $148. And we're going to likely overshoot it. We're likely going to overshoot it to the tune of, well, I'm going to say, we'll watch this. We watch this particular Fibonacci sphere here, somewhere probably by about $5 to $10, and it'll jerk around. But our ultimate destination in this cycle is $182, at which point it'll pull back and then ultimately visit in excess of 200. And as I mentioned earlier, just summarizing, our goal for 2030, sometime between 2028 and 2030, will be at a minimum $300 a barrel, and at a maximum $335 a barrel. That's American. I'm going to do a little video coming up on the Canadian and American dollar, an update, because things are unfolding there as I forecast earlier, which will give some relief because the Canadian dollar looks like it's going to rise in value against the American dollar, and which, technically should make oil a little cheaper, but you know how it goes. Now, of course, our argument in Canada is that we can, go pump our own and our own oil, and things will be cheaper. But you must understand that the businesses who do this, well, it's their job to make money, so they're going to sell it into markets that are going to pay them the most, and so that's what keeps the price high. Of course, you can have protectionism and where you just keep everything inside your country. That's the other word for that is called communism, and that's why industries typically fall apart because they're not allowed to make maximum profits. The motivation to work hard and be excellent evaporates, which is why there's no communist country in the world. Which I mean, the exception of China, but China has a sort of has a capitalist bent. They sort of use the communist regime sort of uses their people as slave labor. So that's a bigger story. But the point is that from a standpoint of a productive, healthy, and when I say healthy, I mean that's a happy, gregarious population. That's a little bit of bedlam there. So that's going to fuel the prices that you see there. So once again, as far as prices at the pump, likely by the end of the summer, you're going to be seeing upwards of almost $3 a liter. So my recommendation is if you can buy some fuel oil, if you need heating oil, get it now. There will be a price collapse after we rise to that $155 a barrel. There will be a price collapse back down to about $129 a barrel, but it's not even there yet. So, I don't know. This is not investment advice, but it's just to let you know what's coming. It's, lots of people will be filling up and have speculation like, oh, I hope it goes down tomorrow. Well, it's not going to go down tomorrow. It's going to continue to escalate based on the chart because the chart does not lie. We are in what's called an impulsive phase in history, and better to be mentally prepared for all of the ramifications that come around this. But I mean, let's face it. I remember filling up my car for 39 cents a liter as a young man, and I had a lot longer time to prepare for it mentally, for the prices we pay today, and essentially the duration, the time that is going on associated for us to prepare for these higher prices is radically different. Expect wages to rise across the board and the costs of everything basically to go up, but again, in an inflationary environment, oftentimes those increases do not match the increases at which other things rise in value. If there's another commodity or industry you'd like me to take a look at, feel free to comment. I'm happy to extrapolate and show you further how these things will play out in many, many markets. And just to give you a quick dissemination of some of the devices I've used in this chart, these are Fibonacci time patterns. Essentially, you have a high here back in 2000. We have a high here in 2008. We have a low here in 2015, and I'm expecting the next high to occur in 2023, somewhere, close to mid to late summer, and officially that's September, but there will be a variation of either a month before or a month after. And of course, this is also what's called a Fibonacci fan and the Fibonacci spheres. You'll see that the markets always line up. The past will show the future, and you see it especially represented in numbers. So we have a high here, we have a high here, we have a low here, we have a low here, and you see how the spheres all nicely line up? Well, once you do that kind of calculation, you then can see how the markets are going to they're not just going to, all of a sudden, you're not going to see just a huge price over there, with the exception of maybe a war or something like that. But you see, anytime you get a price spike, even in this particular case, we had a price spike that dropped down here, and it was exactly a Fibonacci number. So markets are not manipulated. People will say they're manipulated because they don't understand them, and people think, then there are forces that think they are manipulating them, but the reality is they're defaulting to the natural mathematics of the universe. So yeah, once you understand these natural mathematics, you can then move yourself accordingly and, prepare. So yeah, there it is, folks. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to comment either on my Facebook page or on this YouTube video. And I'm happy to give you specifics, and will indulge those who have specific requests for a given indice or maybe something that's specific to what they're dealing with as far as purchasing decisions today, tomorrow, or in the future. Thanks, folks.